Nah. Okay, Libra. Hi, it's IyaPatsy. I am here not really to do a reading, but just to talk about a continuing series I was led to do in this way for healing of the feminine inner child in us all, male or female. Um, we've been really good this year doing work on our masculine energies and the feminine energy, as usual, has had to wait her turn, right? Had to take a step back. So, what the aim is of these videos, of these little talks, is to help you recognize the place in you, in your childhood or in your young teenage years or young adult years, things that may have impacted you um, in a way that kept you silenced or in a way that um, maybe made you feel different or outcast, male or female, but just hoping that we can help to heal, especially since the number that represents Libra is 5, right? And we are in a 5 year. So I've been using inner, the fairy tale deck, right? The inner child cards, the fairy tale tarot, right? And I did a series of readings using these cards back a couple of years ago, and I'll link you to the one for Libra. Um, when this uploads, I'll link it. It'll be in the comment or the description section. But what I decided to do is take a look at all of the astrological signs and what they represented in the fairy tale tarot, the inner child cards by Isha Lerner and Mark Lerner. Um, and I wanted to do this for you. Hopefully trying to finish this all up by the end of the year. But there's been delays, there's games being played with my computer system and all of this. But I want to try very much to do this for you. So we're in a 5 year, and Libra is 5. Libra is justice. Libra is the Hierophant, right? In the regular tarot, number 5. So this is about organizations, right? This is about community. This is about religion and the things that you may have been taught through going to Sunday school, okay, through going to classes, religious study for whatever religion, if it was Christian or if it was a Jewish or a Hindu, whatever. Your teachings and the impressions that you've gotten over the during that time that have now affected the way you look at religion and spirituality and church and community, your place or the place that women should hold in those organizations. So this could be talking about chauvinism. This could be talking about misogyny, conforming, and maybe when you were a little girl or your inner feminine child, I'm going to refer to her as she because it is a feminine energy. But you as a male, if you're a male Libra watching this, some of this may resonate with you. So as I said, I'm not really doing a reading per se, but I'm going through and looking at different decks and what the number 5 represents. So in the Hoodoo Tarot, figure number 5 is the Bishop C.H. Mason. who is the founder and leader of the Church of God in Christ. Pentecostal church happens to be the church that I grew myself up in. I say grew myself up in because my mother was Episcopalian and my father was I don't know, regular well, there's a family church down in Jacksonville. Um I think it's an AME church, maybe Episcopal. So it's basically Episcopalian, right? And American Methodist, Episcopalian, and Church of England, Episcopalian, Anglo-Saxon. So that whole more formal type of setting, I guess, when you go into their services. But in the Church of God in Christ, it wasn't like that. It was lots of music and movement and testimonies and devotional services and all of these. Your day, not only your day, your life, Monday through Friday, and then Sunday morning you come to church, and all of the things that you did last week weren't even discussed or talked about. In the Church of God in Christ, I've seen folks get called out, right, when things happen. So this is talking about accountability, punishment, misuse of authority for some people. So you could have been in a situation in any organized religion. Maybe you were victimized. That's possible. Some of you may have been victimized by a person of authority. Could be a sexual violation. It could just be someone that tried to or who was able to impress upon you, or a system that was able to impress upon you certain rules, certain mm, behaviors, certain rituals, routines, um, dogmas, judgments that was impressed upon you subconsciously or consciously in your youth that affect the way that you operate as an adult or has affected you. Some of you have continued to belong with these type of organizations, and this is all that you know, and you've had a great experience, and this is nothing to do with you. But for some Libras, and also some Leos, because in the Barbieri zodiac, the number 5 is associated with Leo. So maybe you have Leo in your chart, or you had a parent or an authority figure who was a Leo. That would be someone who may have been born at the end of July, the beginning of August. Yeah, right. Up until, yeah, the end of July. So like July 20th until August 25th or 23rd, around that time. The 21st and 23rd of the months basically are the times when the signs change. So you or someone around you could have been a Leo or some type of a fire sign, even Aries or Sagittarius, someone who's in authority that made an impression on you. You may have been a child prodigy. I was hearing that earlier. Someone who may have been selected to participate. Right? You could have been a altar boy or altar girl if they had those in the Catholic Church. Some place of prominence where you were kind of highlighted, a spot. It could have been in the choir. Maybe you were the lead singer in the choir, or maybe you were the director, choir director. Some of you, okay. So it was singing, maybe. Some of you, that's what your religious um, experience included, those types of things. Service to the community, um, witnessing, handing out tracts, those little pamphlets, those types of things. Doing speaking. Some of you Libras may have become a minister or a pastor or a clergy person over the years, but maybe there's something that you changed or something that you want to change, or maybe something was changed, but you never got that update. um, for some of you, you were following a certain doctrine. You may have been taught to follow a certain doctrine, but as years went on, your thoughts about that doctrine changed. Maybe you found out things that were hidden from you that were pretty important. Like in my case, all right, going back to Church of God in Christ. There were, it wasn't until recently when I got this hoodoo deck that I found out that Bishop Mason didn't have a problem with people doing divinations, people doing palmistry or using roots and those type of things, because that's who his mother was. And that's how she saved his life at some point. But growing up in my experience in the Church of God in Christ, outwardly, these type of things were frowned upon and forbidden. So as a child, as a young person, I remember speaking to my pastor and asking him about, is there anything wrong with burning candles and those type of things? Now I did this privately, and when no one was around, he and I talked. And that's another thing. For some of you, you were able to mm, interact on a more personal basis, maybe with the spiritual leader or the religious leader, some type of audience that you were able to have with this person. Like you developed some type of a friendship. Um, it could have been just regular friendship, um, no sex, nothing like that involved. And in others of you, someone may have been grooming you to become intimate with them later. And for some of you, it didn't happen, but because of circumstances, you became aware of it and you were able to avoid that altogether. You may not have even known that you were being targeted. hmm You may not have realized it, but for some of you, you did experience that from an organization, some organization that is supposed to be above board, so it doesn't have to be church. It could be your job or your parents' jobs. Some place that was supposed to be safe or supposed to have standards that you may have encountered as a young person, as a child, and it didn't, the behaviors, the actions did not jibe with the mission statement. Okay? Right. So whatever the actions were that took place, and I hope I'm being heard. Okay. Whatever the actions were that may have taken place did not, there was a one public facade, and then behind closed doors in secret places there was something else going on, right? And for some of you, some of us, Libra, or whoever comes across this, and it resonates. 4, you tried to find the righteousness. You were looking for, I'm hearing perfection, but I don't know. For some of you who are looking for perfection, some of you may have felt that it was perfect, but there may have been times for everyone where you questioned the authority. And that's not supposed to be done, I guess. You may have done things or had opinions or thoughts that weren't acceptable to the rest of the community that you were involved with, whether it be church, family, on work. And so now, 55 from the numerology deck, an adventure. So maybe at some point you decided to step away from this group, this organization, and find your own answers, right? Seek your own answers, right? Maybe you lost something or someone, or lost faith in something, in someone, and it made you want to step back, right? So they tell you in the scriptures, in the Holy Scriptures, King James Version, or just in general, we have come to realize, I think collectively, that we can't look at the leader of an organization to devote ourselves to them. We are dealing on a higher level, right? So we don't need um, to put our trust in a human who's a reverend, a pastor, a minister, or nun, whatever. Rather, we realize, or you may have realized, that the relationship is between yourself and God, yourself and the Creator, whatever you call God, Buddha, Yahweh, um, whatever you call God, Allah, whatever you call God. You didn't need the intercessory person. You could have gone around, right? Because wizards, right? Magicians, leaders aren't always perfect, right? Like in The Wizard of Oz, behind the curtain, he was an imposter, but everybody looked up to him until the curtain was pulled away and they saw that he was just like them, regular person, right? Bishop Mason believes a certain way, but over time, other people are in the organization, because of their own prejudices and their own thoughts, decided that doing divination or even women speaking in church was against the rules, even though that is not what Bishop Mason was about, right? He didn't believe that women needed to be silent, but it was a big deal to allow women to be preachers or bring services, bring messages to the community in the Church of God in Christ. I'm just using that as an example because that's what I know. So it became a thing. But in actuality, it should have never had been a thing, because he, as the organizer, that was not his philosophy. But again, we are dealing with human beings, usually men, who are at the tops of these organizations, who have decided that, women don't have a place, even though the scripture says that the women are the ones that brought the good news, brought the gospel, right? That Christ has risen, right? A woman birthed Jesus. If you are into Christianity, right? Isn't this what the season is about? The birth of Christ? He came through a woman. When Mary went to visit her cousin Elizabeth, who was pregnant at the same time with John the Baptist. Elizabeth was able to say to Mary that she knew that she was carrying the Messiah because she felt it when her baby inside of her acknowledged the baby inside of Mary, right? These are important things, but for some reason, women were put at the back, right? They were afterthought. The all the books of the Bible, what is it, 2, 3, 4, named after women, and the only book of the Bible where it's an actual recollection of events in real time was the book of Esther, when Esther saved her people, the Jews, from being killed, right? And we still celebrate that to today, right? For um, Feast of Purim, Esther Day, um, organizations, whether they're Jewish or not, recognize the relationship that Esther had and her ability to speak to the person in authority who happened to be the king, who happened to be her husband, is what saved every one of her people from being exterminated. So, for some of us, again, you may have found out or felt that you weren't given the opportunity to participate in some places and some things. Maybe you wanted to be on the choir and you couldn't sing, or they told you you couldn't sing, or you couldn't sing as well as others, right? Maybe you felt left out. So that could be something, feeling left out, feeling different. So for some people, you may have gained a lot of wisdom, right? Dealing with the church, dealing with the organization. I'm gonna keep it about. I guess if they really want to talk about church, but it could apply to any kind of organization. It doesn't have to be church. It could be synagogue. It could be mosque, whatever the organization is. But there was a lot of wisdom there, right? And you learned a lot of things, enough you felt that you could maybe strike out on your own. Maybe some of you went to theologic school or took those kind of classes even to gain more wisdom, public speaking. So you may have gone to school to become a minister or theologist, right? Some of us made those choices to do that. But there were obstacles and challenges, right? There were conflicting messages. And so you felt defeated after a while because maybe the things that you were taught as a child, when you got out in the world and started living among the rest of us mortals, things were different than what you had been taught. And maybe you had to change the way that you looked at things, change your perspective for some of you. So getting out in the world and seeing other things, other places may have changed your perspective. And maybe when you came back and tried to share that, right? Share that good news, that higher learning, if it wasn't in if it wasn't in line with your upbringing, well, it wasn't accepted, right? And it may have caused lots of changes, financial changes, material changes. Maybe some of you may have left your organization. Some of you may have left your church, changed, hmm, changed the way that you worship. Some of you, this may have led you to have a different perspective on the things that you grew up believing were truths. And so you had to change self-discipline. You may have had to hold yourself back in order to remain part of the group. For some of you, you stayed in the group even though you didn't agree with their practices or their teachings, their dogma, right? For some of you, their teachings may have kept you from pursuing certain things. Maybe you didn't go to college. As a woman, a female, maybe you weren't encouraged to get an education because what do you need an education for? In some organizations, they may have taught that back then when you were younger, when you were a child. Or this could have been pertaining to a parent, someone around you who may have gone through this, and maybe you witnessed it and may have affected you in ways that you may not have been aware of, because that feminine energy, that feminine little girl that was hurt, that inner child, may not have felt it was safe to speak up, right? May not have felt a safe place to express themselves. But this has changed now, right? We're going to change that. We're going to look at that, right? This is what we need to do. This is what we're being called to do because we've come so far and we need to address that inner feminine energy that has been hurt, silenced, or sidelined. For some of you, it really is a power struggle, right? You could actually be in a situation or have been in a situation where because you were a female, your words weren't accepted or your words were ignored, your advice was ignored, your gifts, your spiritual gifts, your knowledge was ignored because just because you were a woman, had the same words come out of a man's mouth, or at least this is what you may have felt. This is what you thought. This may have been the impression that was given to you. Doesn't mean it is true. Just means that this is how you felt or how your little girl felt, or you may have felt as a young girl, as a little girl, that you couldn't speak up, or that you could have said the exact same thing that other person said, but because they were a guy, it was taken seriously. And when you said it was ignored. Could have been a situation where different points of view. And because you were a woman, even if you were right, there was no way that you were going to be allowed. No way that you were going to be allowed to be right. Some people. Okay. Lots of obstacles. Always lots of conflict, feeling defeated. Like as if there was no relief, right? For you to express yourself because you were constantly being pushed down, pushed back, either by the organization, friends, family, whatever it was. You were not, or you felt that you had to hold yourself back, that you had to change things about yourself, the way you wanted to spend time, spend money, ding, okay, what you wanted to wear, where you wanted to go was controlled. And when you got out in the world and you had some type of space away from this organization or these people or this influence, changed the way that you looked at them because you got more information. And maybe some of you feel that that's why they didn't want you to get higher learning, because they didn't want you to find out the secrets. Okay. Someone feels that they were put in a situation or put into ignorance for other people's benefit. They kept the truth from you or wanted to keep truth from you to benefit others, but not to benefit you, right? The wizard behind the mask, behind the curtain. There was something else going on, and they didn't want to be exposed. Maybe you exposed it and got in trouble as a child. You spoke up. Maybe some of you may have spoken up about this, but you were ignored. And this is about changing the way you feel about this organization, these teachings, this dogma. This is about understanding that you have the ability. You are wise, and that you can affect change when you speak up. They're not going to know. No one's going to understand the change if you don't explain it to them, right? Okay, for some of you. Some of you, you have been told that you're changed. You've changed. Well, yeah, you've grown. You've learned self-discipline. After things, a lot of changes, a lot of introspection. You have grown, and maybe other people around you have not. Maybe they have stayed stuck in the past, and they wanted you to stay stuck in the past with them, Libra. And you were like, no, I want to move ahead. I want to see what else there is. And there was obstacles to that. There may still have been obstacles to that. It may have cost you materially, educationally, intellectually, because you're fighting against the machine. You're pushing against the authority. So again, this could be talking about misogyny. You may have looked up and respected an organization until you saw behind the curtain and you said, oh no, this is not what I thought it was, and this is not where I want to be. This is not where I want to place my energy, right? This is not who I want to worship, okay? This is not what I want to worship, all right? For some of you, this is not what or who I want to worship. I don't want to live under these rules. Okay. So some of you just straight up rebelled against the system. Okay. And that rebellion is still affecting you today. The Hierophant from the Light Seers Tarot. This talks about tradition, lessons, spiritual leaders, guides, enlightenment in service of spirit, formal education, or training, new paradigms. And it talks about old, outdated systems of belief, rebelling against societal norms, okay? Abuse of power and ego-based leadership, and a need to connect with spirit. So changing the way that you look at your relationship with spirit because someone has abused their authority. Maybe you went to the church and that had some money hidden in the toilet stall, and it changed the way that you looked at that organization. But that's recent. That's just a recent thing. Just a joke. But perhaps over time, you, like I said, saw things in this organization. Like I said, it could be work, right? You worked in a corporate setting, or you worked in some kind of social, like let's say you were a social worker and you thought that you were going in to do certain things, and you knew what the rules were, but then in practice it didn't work out that way. That could be that type of a situation, right? Where you went and you did what you were supposed to do. You went to college, you got your degrees, and you went out there to be a change agent. And once you got in place, you sort of there that not only couldn't you implement the change, that they didn't want you to implement any changes because it profited someone else to keep it just the same way. And that may have bothered you because you knew that things needed to be changed and that it could be changed, but it wasn't going to be changed because it wasn't going to benefit the head people in charge, the head man in charge. Okay. It may have benefited your clients, it may have benefited the workers, but it wasn't going to ultimately benefit the people at the top of the system, at the top of the tree. So none of your ideas, none of your innovations were ever taken into consideration. You weren't even given the chance to bring it to them. There may have been other people, for some of you, who stood in the way of you being able to make that change because they were sucking up or they didn't understand it, they didn't want to change. So maybe the people in charge, or the entity in charge of the organization, never got to hear from you your input. Maybe you had submitted it and you thought it was ignored, but it wasn't ignored, it was intercepted for some of you. Maybe you didn't realize that, but I guess that's what Spirit wanted you to know right now. It was intercepted, that your ideas were sent in, where you did your part, but it never got to where it was supposed to go. Okay. The information did not flow the way it was supposed to. It was intercepted. It was changed. Someone may have taken credit for your work also. Someone may have been taking credit for your work, your ideas, and they are appearing to be a sage, appearing to be a leader, appearing to have some kind of authority, and actually they stole all of that from you, or they tried to. Yeah. And that may have caused you a lot of sorrow. Maybe somebody broke your heart because you trusted them and you told them your secrets. You told them your thoughts for change and innovation. And they took those secrets, they took those ideas, and they submitted it as if it was theirs. They get the credit for it, and you don't even, nothing, no acknowledgement of you at all. Not being acknowledged, Libra, for what you brought to the table because you were a girl, because you were a woman. You were disregarded, but your thoughts, your 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 intellectual property, whether it was written or just spoken up about, someone has taken that information, or had taken that, or is taking that, and using it, and then using it against you because they don't want you to find out that you, and that may have been what had happened. Maybe you gave some information as a young person, as a child, to another authority figure, and they turned around and used it and made it seem like it was their information and idea when actually it was yours. You did things to help the organization run smoothly, and you got no acknowledgement for it. And maybe that's why you may have decided to turn against the leadership and walked away from it. And maybe you want to speak up now so that there can be change, because you've got wisdom. You've understood what happened or where this came from. Mm, that could be definitely for some of you. That was what you experienced as a young girl, giving sage advice, but because you were a kid or because you were a girl kid, it was downplayed. Mm, that could have happened. Hmm. Some of you, you may have gone to the church and asked for permission to do something different. Could have been permission to get married, could have been permission to go away, to go to school, to take classes, could have put in for a promotion at a job. And they didn't give it to you, not because you weren't qualified. It was because, or you feel that it was because that you were a woman. And that may very well be the case. As I'm looking at all of these cards, all of the figures on these cards are masculine. Everybody's a guy, right? So what's the message? Those in authority, those who head up things, those who are wise, are male, are masculine energies. Maybe that's what you wanted to change. Maybe you wanted them to know, or maybe they know. They've always known. They've always known. And they acted like they didn't because it wasn't in their best interest, and you knew that. And so then maybe you didn't speak up, or maybe you turned away. And maybe you, because you were hurt or not heard, not acknowledged, you may have turned away. But you miss it because you miss the community of it, right? You're very well aware that you don't need to go, dealing with a man or a pastor or a preacher or a minister or a reverend or whatever the, head of the organization is, male or female, but you knew that you didn't need that person as the intercessionary person between you and God. You got that. But there's maybe a sense of community that you may have lost when you walked away from these people, because this is how you grew up, right? This is what you're used to. But you've grown away from it. You're ready to make those changes. You have made those changes. You didn't become a vagrant, right? You still had discipline, despite what they taught, that if you walked away, or if you wore your dress short, or if you had a slit in your skirt, if you wore makeup, whatever the restrictions were, you were able to discipline yourself while you were out there in the world, right? You didn't conform to the world. You were in the world, not of the world, okay? You didn't become, you know, a derelict. You had discipline, right? You weren't defeated, right? You weren't in, any more conflict than you would have been normally. All the things that they told you, the hell that you were going to end up in. Okay. All right, Spirit. Thank you. Basically, the hell that they painted for you not conforming, or anybody not conforming, anybody leaving the organization, anybody not not going by the rules. Hmm. Okay. In the misogynistic world, you're not going to die alone. All right. You're not going to be the cat lady. You're not going to, all of these things that they try to frighten you with, right? That they try to put in your psyche to make you limit who you are. None of that happened, or none of it is going to happen because it's based on their fears, not yours. So maybe this is about changing the way any bitterness that you have about what had happened and the way that you were treated. You looked at a situation and decided that this isn't the way you were being led, regardless of what they said from the pulpit. And in your own places and spaces, communication with your creator, with your higher power, with God, there was a different energy to it. Oh, I come to the garden alone. I'm hearing that song. There's direct communication between you and spirit, between you and spirit. And that, it is to say, and the joy we share as we tarry there, no other has ever known. So, special relationship that you have with your higher power, whatever it is, however you call it. And the fact that you don't need to go through someone or conform may have been threatening. And maybe you felt it, and so you decided to bring that back, right? To go along to get along. So maybe some of you forced yourselves to go along just to keep the peace. And that could have gone on in relationships. So maybe this situation where you stood up may have cost you so much emotionally that you hesitated to do it in other relationships because you didn't want to feel that hurt, because you want to keep the peace, that you didn't want to stand up and show your intelligence or to show your opinion, to express yourself, because you did not want to feel abandoned and left out again like you did when you spoke up that time. And that could be it. Maybe somewhere in your life you had to make a choice, and you made a choice that affects you to this day because you spoke up, because you chose yourself, you chose what you thought was best, and the material loss, the obstacles, the conflicts, all the things that you experienced when you went on that adventure, for some of you, has caused you to be hesitant about having confidence in your judgment because of what others may see as a wrong choice. Maybe you feel, maybe there are people who will say, well, that's what you get. You should have chosen different. So now this is what you got to live with. No, you have the right to change your mind. You have the right to grow. You have the right to evolve. And maybe you fed into the idea, or maybe you're hesitant now even to speak up, to stand up for yourself. against the machine, against the organization, against whatever, the conformity. And they label you, right? They call you a feminist, and that becomes a curse word, right? Um, Things like that. Something like that. Even if you're a guy and you stand up because you recognize the misogyny or the inequity, and you get ridiculed for that also, right? They call you names, saying all kind, call you a bitch. That kind. I'm just saying what they're telling me to say, calling you, saying that you're being a bitch. Ding, right? Lights, okay. Saying you're being a bitch because you recognize that there is something that is not fair, and you speaking up about it may get you in trouble as a masculine if you defend or if you point out the injustice that was put on a woman or girl around you. If you speak up about that, then you are going to be sidelined, or you're fearing that you're being sidelined. Because in the past, when you have spoken up in defense of someone else, you got negative repercussions from that. So then you decided not to speak up. Maybe you saw someone going through something, or you saw some unfair treatment of someone that was based solely upon the fact that they were different, they were female, they were new to the organization, whatever. People didn't understand them, but you did. And maybe you stood up and said, no, they're not that bad, or no, that's not what they're about. And you got immediately shut down and threatened and ostracized. And so, therefore, you may have said nothing and let it go on. You may have even contributed to it because your fear of being put out of the group. The Spirit's saying maybe you should have taken that opportunity to be put out of the group. Okay, for some of you. You were given an opportunity to flee from a system that you knew was wrong, and instead your fear made you stay and conform, male or female. So we need to look at that, Libra. Look at that. The allowing yourself to be convinced that someone is working outside of the fellowship, the friendship, the organization. And it was wrong. They misjudged something. Something was misjudged, and you went along with it for some of you. And now you have realized that maybe not. When this card appears in a reading, this means that there's a spiritual teacher on the scene. Who's inspiring you? Is it a new field of study, a new philosophy, a new discipline, new realms of music, art, literature, philosophy, religion, history, and nature? Seeing all of those elements as pathways to higher knowledge. Build a bridge between the child within that seeks answers and the higher self that continually offers jewels of enlightenment through dreams, visions, promptings, and intuitive flashes. Stay clear of controlling others for your own purposes. And most of all, with your visualization skills based on the development of your third eye, see your life linked with a fellowship of like-minded souls, a true ring of power in the world. So some of you are changing the way that you worship, or changing the way that whatever the organization is that you're involved in that is established, organized. Maybe you're ready to walk away from that or change something about that. Maybe move to a higher office within the organization that you can impart some type of change. So allowing your inner child to do the work, to do the research, to learn things, to open yourself up to new information, regardless of what these people, this organization has told you, right? You are looking for your own relationship with spirit, right? You know it's there, but it could be different than the way they worship. It could be different from the way that they're used to. And maybe you are the change agent, right? You are the one who are going to make things different. And maybe even make it fun for them or for whomever. But you have a mission to bring this to someone else, to share what you've learned with someone. Speak about what you've learned about the organization or about this religion or about this way of thinking. And you're going to speak up about it because it needs to change, right? It needs to change. So, Libra, there's changes, and you are the change agent around you. There are people who may be a little stiff. There may be an organization that you were previously a part of, or there could be a church or something that you were previously part of that you may have walked away from, but you kind of miss it. But you know that the way that you think and the things that you've learned will go against the grain. And so you maybe are holding yourself back from participating again or from even expressing the things that you've learned. But I think it's time. I think it's time. I think that's what Spirit is saying to us all. It's time to stand up and defend your beliefs. Be open to other people's points of view. But remember, you have already heard their point of view for years because there's nothing changed, right? Nothing has evolved. And so maybe you're coming back. I'm here. Welcome back, Carter, right? So you in a situation, maybe you're going back to your school that you graduated from, and you're going to be a teacher there, and things have changed, and you got a new way of doing things. Be bold and do it the way that you are being led to do it, but being mindful of the results, right, and how it's affecting other people. So you're going to be a responsible leader. Okay, be a responsible leader, Libra. Don't manipulate people, right? Okay, don't manipulate others for your own benefit through your words, through your preaching, right? Someone's coming to you for help, help them. Don't let the help that you get be a byproduct, but not the intent of the changes that you make. So it could be for the greater good and not just for your good. So what are your motives? That's another thing. Check your motives. Check the motives of the people that you're dealing with. And that could be what is also changing. Again, maybe you're checking the motives of this wizard, right? Of this authority figure, of this leader, right? of this organization. You're doing research, or you have done research and you're ready to make a change, either a change in the way that you approach them or the way that they're looked at. Maybe you're going to give the inside scoop on what really is going on behind the curtain of an organization. And that may be because of the way that you were treated or mistreated or acknowledged in your youth. But are you doing it for your own purposes, or are you doing it because you want to enlighten people or warn people or help people? You could be warning them to help them rather than warning them just to get revenge on the organization. So check your motives in that, Libra. Be fair. If you know people are looking up to you, then you have a different type of responsibility, right? Heavy is the head that wears the crown. It's not, it looks good, but it's not that easy when you get there. And if you're a leader of an organization and you've been teaching things a certain way and other things come across your path over time that makes you want to adjust your teachings, then there's no reason for you not to, right? Just be honest. It's not wrong to change your mind. It's not, compromise is not a curse word. And that's what we have to understand, that you have to bring balance, right? When change with the times, yes, of course, you don't want to come, let down certain traditions and standards, but at the same time, look at the tradition and see what is it based on, and is it based on truth or is it based on other people's perceptions? That's not true, but that's what was comfortable, right? Because if we all grew up in a situation or been socialized in the African American community, especially, that divination and roots and nature and all of the things, all of the tools that are here to help us navigate, and we've been told that it's wrong and we shouldn't do it, but then we get into an organization or we get a leader that says, "Oh, it's okay, it's all right when you need to do it to protect yourself or to, you know." Find intent to put the powers that you have inside of you to utilize those. Nah, there's more people telling you not to do that than to do that. And they'll change the doctrine. Okay, they'll change what was actually said. Even going back to the scriptures, right? King James wanted the Bible to give him permission to get a divorce, and it didn't, and he said, write a new one. And that's what we live off of. That's the basis of a lot of religions, is the King James Version, KJV, of the Holy Scriptures. But again, that was changed because the person at the top needed it to look a certain way in order for them to get a certain result. So be careful of that. Be careful of that. Do your research. Find out where these doctrines come from, why these people teach these type of things, so that you can, when you do speak up, when you do speak about the change that you want to bring, that you'll know where it's coming from, right? You'll have all the information that you need, all right? You'll have all the information and the examples within yourself and in your life and the way that you speak, right? Don't let yourself get sidetracked into arguments, right? Don't let them change what you are. Don't let them change the subject and take it off of the doctrine and put it on you. Because this is not about the person that's bringing the message. This is about the message. So if it resonates, it resonates. Doesn't matter who's bringing it, right? If there's truth in it, then you take the truth out of it, regardless of who's bringing it to you, because it's not about the person. It's about the energy and the message that you needed to hear. So you don't have to like the person, but it doesn't mean that what they're saying is not valid or that it doesn't make sense in your life at the moment when you're hearing it. And as for some people also may be resistant because you don't like the person that's saying it, you're not paying attention to what's being said. So that is like against authority in a way. Yeah. So even if they told you something for your own good because you don't like the organization or because you don't like the person, you rebel against it or you dismiss it. So there's this other things that you might need to take a look at, right? Just the fact that you're acknowledging that these things could have affected you, because you're not going to solve everything. Of course not. You're not going to solve anything about your masculine energy or your feminine energy is not going to be solved, but there'll be a resolution in the sense that you recognize it about yourself and then you can address it when it comes up. You can remind yourself to be brave, right? And fearless and speak up. Or you can remind yourself that you need to have your facts, that you need to be girded with the information before you attack or underplay someone else's knowledge. Don't dismiss a person just because you don't like them. But if they're saying something that's valid, you can accept that. Besides the fact that you don't like them, they could still be saying something that's valid. Looking at things from a different perspective, Libra, because this is a year of change and there's still time, right? Don't worry about December 31st or that type of thing. All right, those are artificial milestones, right? Deadline dates that we are giving ourselves when it comes to our spiritual growth. It's all going to be done in divine timing. It's going to be done when you are ready for it and when it's necessary for the rest of the community, right? So, Libra, I hope that you got something out of this little discussion in chat. It's been everybody's readings have gone a different way, right? So I want to see if we give you some kind of advice from your ancestors on today. Yeah, cat. All right, let's see. Oh, it opened up to great teacher. Learn from spiritual experiences. All right, just opened up to that. Page 36. All right, 36 is 9, and we know 9 is messages. So let's see if I can find the card so you can see. But if not, I'll just read it from the book. Great teacher. Wow. Yeah, so this is about you standing up and sharing your wisdom with others, maybe, or that you have learned something that you want to share, or you're being called to share with others something that you know. Hmm. All right. Where is it? Hmm. And maybe I took it out earlier with this deck, with this stack. Doesn't matter. It's around here. The great teacher. Learn from spiritual experiences. Know that what is happening around you is divinely inspired. Learn from your current experiences and then share them with others. Okay. This card is inspired by Jesus, who is the most widely acknowledged and loved spiritual teacher of all time. But there is a great teacher in every tradition. A great teacher in every tradition, and the card represents the one to whom you feel closest, as well as the great teacher within. Okay. The teacher wears simple clothes to demonstrate that even if you live a simple life, it can be an incredibly spiritual one. So it's not about what you look like. It's about what do you hold inside. Not about outer appearances, but inner spirituality. There is serenity and harmony in the picture, if I could have found it. Okay, this is it here. The great teacher. So you can see what it looks like. This card represents the one to whom you feel closest, as well as the great teacher within you. The teacher wears simple clothes to demonstrate that even if you live a simple life, it can still be incredibly spiritual. He is surrounded by a sense of serenity and harmony because he has absolute trust in the higher power that moves through him. And the dove on the card represents receiving answers to prayers through signs and experiencing peace through joy. Receiving answers to prayers through signs, that's signs and synchronicities, and experiencing peace through joy, bliss. That's personal. Maybe not for everyone, but your own personal joy. This also talks about a teacher in your life or the great teacher within. Shows that you have dedicated a lot of time, effort, and energy to understanding yourself and the world. You are having spiritual experiences at this time and gaining a greater awareness of what you need to do in order to grow. Healing your inner child, masculine and feminine. There's a great chance that if you've been having any challenges recently, you have surmounted them and allowed them to be vehicles to lessons that are helping your spiritual connection. So you transmute those negative experiences and energies, and you share those lessons with yourself and with others, trying to use whatever the negative is and apply it in a way that it enhances your spirituality. So gratitude is the easiest one, even though it's the hardest one. But taking a situation that could have been devastating and may have been devastating, but using it to strengthen or reinforce your connection with spirit, with your higher teacher. If you feel that you've received messages from heaven or the universe recently, this card is a confirmation that these have indeed been holy experiences. So you're not crazy. If you've gotten messages, if you've gotten symbols and signs from the universe that's telling you to move a certain way or say a certain thing, it's the truth. You're not making it up. You didn't imagine it. So someone needed to know that whatever the lessons are that you've received, whatever the messages are that you've gotten from spirit, here we go, is real. Right? That message from your ancestors that may have shocked you or befuddled you or confused you, it was real and it was meant for you. And it's trying to lead you in a direction that spirit wants you to go, path that God wants you on. You learned from the exposure that you've had to the world and to these organizations, and now you're being called upon to bring peace to a situation, to bring fairness, to share your knowledge in a way that is going to be for the benefit of everyone. So you become the wizard, right? You become the spiritual leader. You become the head of a organization, right? Or the leader of a new way of spirit of communicating with spirit, or a new way of teaching, right? But you are going to use your experiences, knowing that you definitely have been getting those messages straight from source to you without any one in between. And so there's joy in that, there's peace in that. Mission accomplished. Now, share that information, share that wisdom with others, and let them be able to see it in you, see the change in you, see the growth in you by the way you share, by the way you act and respond differently. And even though you may have changed, there are changes for the better. If they want to accept it, doesn't matter, as long as you accept the changes in you that were given and sent to you by spirit, because they need you. You're needed, you're necessary. Your information, your wisdom, your experiences are necessary for the community. The community could be your family, it could be where you work, where you worship, whatever, people around you, but that glow is going to be with you. And when you're in your, mojo, when you're in it, you're in it. And people are going to know, whoever's supposed to know, they'll get it. And you don't have to force it. You just have to do it and be comfortable in it. Have faith in yourself, faith in the Creator, and resolve that you're just going to do the best that you can. And once you put it out there, wherever it goes, and however it goes, right? But you've done your part, and you're at peace with it. You're at peace with allowing that message to come and go wherever it goes, and make whatever changes are necessary, however that word goes, wherever it gets out. But you're teaching based on what you have experienced. It's wonderful, beautiful. So Libra, take a look at these things, consider them, see if they make sense in your life, and if they do, go from there. You're blessed. So anytime that you come across this reading, it's meant for you to see it, and please share it with other people who you know are Libras, because they could be going through a similar experience. Also, may have gone through similar experiences. And you can look at all the videos on this playlist as I do them, and maybe different ones will hit for you also, different placements, right? Or just different experiences, because all it is me talking about the messages that I'm getting here that could be applicable to your life in some way to help you to heal. Again, everything's not going to be resolved, but being acknowledged is the first step. So I'll be talking to everybody real soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share these messages. Check out the channel. There's lots of new things on there, some shorts on there that are kind of fun and informative. And I'll be talking to everybody real soon. All right. Peace and namaste. All right.